I'm a retired United States Navy Master Chief Petty Officer, an E9 for those who come from the other services. It's the most senior enlisted rank. I was a weather forecaster for most of my time, also did some instructing in weather schools. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Pennsylvania. It's in history. And I enjoy gardening. That's my passion in life, other than running for office and trying to make a difference in our world.
Well, why exactly are you running?
I have a niece and nephew, and they are grown up now, but I think it's very important to me that I try to make the world a better place, both the world and our country. My nephew has a 1.5-year-old now, and my niece is going to have a baby in January. So it's even more important that I get involved and help try to solve some of the problems that I see in our political world. The first two are tied together. It's restoring state funding for education and ending the unfair and unsustainable property taxes, especially here in York County, the increases that we've been seeing. And then it's creating jobs, but not just jobs, good jobs. A 10-10 minimum wage is a very important part of that equation of making sure that we have jobs that people can live on and raise a family on. On the first two, the state used to provide about 50% of the cost of funding education. Now it's down to about 34%. So that's pushed a lot of the responsibility down to local school boards and my wallet and your wallet. The state also has an unfair funding formula. And when Governor Corbett came into office, he changed how some of the funds were allocated, and actually wealthy districts got a better deal than poorer school districts. Governor Corbett also cut funding for cyber charters and charter school reimbursements, and he cut school construction reimbursements. So we have to reverse that, have the state do 50% share of funding. And then, like I said, on creating good jobs, we have to try to attract some manufacturing and make sure we do get our minimum wage raised to 10-10. Right now, if you took the minimum wage in 1968, it was $1.60 inflation adjusted. It's now up to, should be $10.90. So we have a lot of people who are working less than what the minimum wage was in 1968. And that's one thing that's harming our economy, and that's what we have to turn around. The state used to provide about 50% of the share of public education funding. It's now down to about 34%. So that means that the local taxpayers, you and I, have to make up that difference. York County also suffers because there's an unfair education funding formula. It doesn't take into account the growing population that we have. Therefore, we get hammered once again with local taxpayers trying to make up the difference. And in recent times, Governor Corbett cut reimbursements for charter schools. It's hammered York City, but it also hurt all the other districts if you had some students in cyber charter schools. He put a moratorium on reimbursing school districts for construction funding. So once again, school districts who in good faith spent had to make that difference up. So basically what we need to do is we need to go and look at having the state restore that 50% of education funding. One of the interesting things is, since 2003, corporations have had tax breaks increase. They were $850 million worth of tax breaks for corporations in 2003. Now that's over $3 billion. Governor Corbett has actually added over $1 billion himself. The Marcellus shale drillers don't pay the severance tax like they do in other states. What they do pay is much less than other states get in tax money. So basically what we need to do is have corporations and the Marcellus shale drillers pay a fair share of taxes. I'm not trying to soak anybody. But you look at it, if you and I can be asked to keep increasing the amount of money we pay in taxes, why can't corporations pay the same amount that they used to? That's where we get the lion's share of funding for education and for the other priorities, like the pension payments that have been hurting Pennsylvania. Fixing the pension problem is important, but remember that was a problem that was created by government, created in 2001 by the Republican-controlled legislature and governor. And that has been the tail wagging the dog. And basically, the reason that's been a problem is the legislature did not want to make the pension payments because they wanted to keep saying they were cutting taxes or holding the line on taxes. If you give everybody, make everybody pay a fair share, including corporations, then this stuff starts to balance out. Then we do the things we need to do, which is support the middle class, support good jobs for working families, and educate our kids. And we've had these budget downgrades because the state has been trying to balance the budget with one-time revenue sources and some unrealistic assumptions. Just 2 times in the last 2 months, we've had downgrades from Fitch's and Standard & Poor's. The $1.5 billion in borrowing is very concerning because one of the things that my opponent and Governor Corbett has told us is they're being fiscally responsible. Well, look at the record. We've got education cuts, we've got cuts on teachers, we've had property taxes increasing. We still don't have the balanced budget, but Governor Corbett has given $1 billion in tax breaks to corporations under his watch. We give over $3 billion in total. That's where we need to start asking them to pay a fair share so that we can actually balance the budget and provide the things like education that we really need to do for our children. I think government needs to be very limited, but we do need government. We should have as few laws as possible, spend as little money as possible, but we have to do things well. So government must educate our kids. That pays off for us in many ways. Government needs to stay out of the personal lives of people. Women, for instance, should be able to make their own health care choices. But when it comes to clean water, clean air, government has a role. When it comes to global warming, the individuals cannot take on that challenge by themselves. Government can. And one specific way would be to stop subsidizing the fossil fuel companies. So I'm very much, I think, on the side, in many cases, of those who want to see limited government. I want to see it just limited to what it needs to do and leave citizens so that we can do the things that we do well without government interference. I'm very concerned because he went up running against the establishment, but he just voted for the budget, the Governor Corbett and establishment budget, which left priorities like education underfunded, which left our property tax problem intact. We're not creating good jobs. We don't have a 10-10 minimum wage. So there are a lot of things that are not being done that I think he should do. It's interesting to me that he's fighting next year's leadership battle this year because it takes away from doing the things that need to be done this year. I mentioned the 10-10 minimum wage. True property tax reform. It's a distraction and it's a disservice to the people of York County. So I'm very disappointed. I too would like to see the Republican majority leader lose his job, and I'd like to see some Democrats take over so that we can help, hopefully, new Governor Tom Wolf turn our state around and start paying attention to the middle class and start paying attention to bringing some manufacturing jobs, good jobs back to the state, actually tackling true property tax reform. It's very interesting because of how critical he was. He wasn't just critical, he was very direct that Governor Corbett was not at all up to the job. And Governor Corbett's spokesman was very direct in criticizing Senator Wagner. And it reminded me of an inter-party, between Democrats and Republicans. the worst of politics basically going on. And now that he's changed his mind, signals to me that Senator Wagner wants to become part of the establishment. He's not necessarily there to shake things up, but he's just there to do what he needs to do to get his way. And you look at the record of Governor Corbett, the education, 27,000 educators lost. Jobs went from 9th to 47th in job creation under Governor Corbett. Property taxes keep going up. Governor Corbett will say he did not raise taxes, but he raised taxes for transportation on the average consumer, yet he's telling us he didn't. So there's not a good, strong record there. Then you add that $1.5 billion in borrowing, the 5 credit downgrades, the structural deficit, while he's giving breaks to people like the Marcellus Shale drillers who are good campaign contributors, but they don't pay the same severance tax to Pennsylvania that they do in every other state, which means our state struggles to pay for teachers, to pay to keep classroom sizes at a reasonable level, and to help keep property taxes down. We have a pension problem, and it's created by our legislature, and it goes back to the 2001 increase where the legislature gave itself a 50% increase in their pensions. Governor Ridge went along with that, and at the same time they decided to stop making the employer contributions. Well, that's like if you had your home mortgage and you decided to stop paying your principal and just pay interest on it. It's going to come back to bite you. In 2010, we did have pension reform. It's Act 120, and that raised the retirement age for new employees. It cut benefits, and the state actually is going to pay less for the future employees than other states do for pensions. So the solution for our pension problem is simply now paying the bill that's due. It's paying the principal on our mortgage. And I talked about having corporations pay a fair share. That's what we need to do to fix the pension problem. So no, it's not a crisis, but there is a crisis in municipal pensions, which are separate from the state pensions. We have got to allow municipalities, especially cities, ways to raise revenue. I know that mayors have been going to the state legislature and saying we have structural problems, and the legislature's gone, who cares? We need to allow cities and municipalities ways to raise revenue, and the state needs to step in and make the payments and stop the municipal pension crisis. Otherwise, within 5 years, we're going to see some really painful adjustments. First of all, the corporate drillers came here knowing that it was politically 50-50 maybe that they'd get a severance tax. This is where the gas is. They pay a higher severance tax in all the other states where there's drilling. Not only that, they don't pay a property tax in Pennsylvania that they pay in other states, and even the other extractive industries like coal have to pay a property tax. But our legislature has not made them pay the tax. The court basically said that the legislature could make them pay the property tax. So it's just a matter of they want to get as much money as possible, but they've gotten a very good deal. They impose costs upon us. They use our roads and bridges. They create pollution. We know that we've had at least 243 instances of compromising water quality. They need to pay, because we've had other situations. We've had the timber industry come through. We've had the coal industry come through and just leave a mess behind that we taxpayers have had to pay to clean up. So I think it's a no-brainer for them to be a true good corporate citizen, a corporate neighbor, good neighbor. They need to pay a fair severance tax. First of all, we need to make the investment. One of the frustrating things about Governor Corbett's tenure is it took 2.5 years to come up with a transportation spending bill. For every $1 billion in spending on infrastructure, there are 30,000 jobs created. So we left 60, 90,000 jobs unfilled while we're letting our roads and bridges fall apart. We even have a bridge in York County now that is closed, just been closed in the last month. that won't reopen until about 2017 when they finally get around to funding it. So that's the first thing, is we have to step up maintaining things so that they don't cost us more in the future. Other things we can do, though, there's other types of infrastructure. There's our electric grid. We need to come up with a 21st century electric grid so that it's efficient. Things like moving to renewable energy and getting off of our fossil fuels, solar and wind, having that tie into our electric system will help lower our costs, create good jobs. We can even put them on our school buildings and lower our property taxes by lowering our costs. Maintaining gas lines. So there's all sorts of things that we need to maintain. Water lines too. That's what I think we need to do. We need to make that steady investment because it creates jobs, and when you create jobs, that helps the economy, that helps people pay more taxes, which means we have the money to really maintain things for the next generation. One of the most important things is for the state to do the basic functions that it needs to do. Education is one. We talked about the lost educator jobs. Those are 27,000 good jobs. Maintaining our roads and bridges is another one. For every $1 billion in infrastructure spending, that creates 30,000 jobs. And our transportation bill is a step forward, but it's a slow step forward. We really should have created about 90,000 jobs already for our roads and bridges. Other things that the state can do is stop subsidizing companies and corporations that don't need money. The state gave a $30 million grant to Comcast to build a skyscraper in Philadelphia. If you're a small businessman, how are you supposed to compete? If you have a great idea, Comcast just got 30 million taxpayers' dollars. So we have to stop subsidizing corporations and things like the fossil fuel industry that don't need to be subsidized, and make sure we truly support small businesses so that they can create jobs, because they are the true job creators. And we can level the playing field on taxes. Corporations are very good at not paying taxes. We talked about the tax breaks that the state has given them that are now over $3 billion. Your small businessmen don't get those tax breaks. So I think that's another way we need to level the playing field, and then we'll really see our economy take off. That's a known loophole that has been hammering our budget for years. There is a weak fix to that loophole that has been enacted, but it comes back to being a true corporate good neighbor. You pay your fair share. Other states have closed that loophole. Corporations here can certainly afford to pay their fair share because, once again, the small businessman does not benefit from those loopholes. The small businessman does not have a lawyer to go create that fake corporation or that just way to get around taxes. So I think it's something that we need to do, and we need to look at other corporate taxes. Once again, it's pay a fair share so that we all pay a fair share. That's when our economy is going to do better. On paper, it's one of the highest in the nation, but over 70% of corporations don't pay the corporate net income tax, which tells me that there's too many loopholes and too many ways to get around it. There have been proposals, which I fully support, that would lower that corporate tax, but make sure there are no loopholes, so that every corporation and every small businessman is paying about the same in taxes. And corporations need to pay taxes. Keep in mind that corporations do impose costs. They use our roads, they use our court systems. And one way to look at it is, if we don't tax any corporations, we all are paying taxes to support them.